Franz Schubert, Edgar Allan Poe, Presentable sleepwear, and using our best. Welcome to the Chic Assignment for October 2019. Welcome back to the Daily Connoisseur. I am so happy to be here. This is my favorite thing that we do on this channel, the Chic Assignment. And it's that time for the Chic Assignment check-in for October. And I can't believe, I say this every time, I can't believe the month's almost over. I've thoroughly enjoyed this month's Chic Assignment. I hope that you have too. This video is so full of goodies and treats. It's going to be a long video. I know a lot of you don't have time to watch a longer video, but at the same time, I don't want to cut corners. I really want to explore these things and just delight in them. So I am going to put the timestamps down below of when I talk about each particular subject, and feel free to jump around or just watch what you feel like watching. I'm going to go out of order in today's video. We're going to start off with Chic Assignments 3 and 4, the sleepwear and using our best. Then we're going to get into Edgar Allan Poe. I have an amazing treat for you. My husband Ben is going to be reading the second half of The Raven. Many of you have said that he could read the phone book and you would be happy, and well, there you go. You're getting much better than the phone book today. So he's going to be reading for us, and I will be performing Schubert's Serenade for you at the very end of the video. So this is going to be an action-packed Chic Assignment Spectacular today, so I hope that you enjoy today's video. All right, I have my cup of tea here. I'm drinking Earl Grey again, and let's get right into it. Okay, I had hoped to have my presentable sleepwear out before I did the check-in, but that didn't happen. You will see that video this week, so that's coming. It just takes so much work to do these videos, and I got a bit behind. However, I did compile a bunch of comments from you on your thoughts on presentable sleepwear. And if you saw my recent 3 articles on dress video, I talked about that funny article with the actor Jason Donovan, who had to fight a fire in the middle of the night in his underwear. He tweeted that that was a case for wearing presentable pajamas. Those weren't his exact words, but basically that's what he was saying. And so let's talk about pajamas, because I think that they are very important. People put a lot of thought into what they wear during the day when they see people, but it's when we're at home, when nobody sees us, that I believe truly matters, because that's our true self. That's when we're really showing our habits and our mannerisms. So I think that we should look presentable always. That includes sleepwear. Now, that does not mean that we all wear the same sleepwear, and I had so many different comments this month about that. Some people said, well, you know, I don't feel comfortable walking around in a slinky chemise in my house. And some people said, you know, I'm an older woman and I don't want to wear leggings and a shirt with like a strange slogan on it. You know, the good news is that there are so many different types of pajamas, of sleepwear, and I'm going to be going over those types in the sleepwear video. So that's going to take up the majority of this discussion. I won't talk about it too much more here. But the point is that you find what you do like to wear to bed, and you just wear that and make it beautiful. You can find good sleepwear at any price point. You really can. So that's not an excuse. I wanted to read a few of the comments because I do like to involve you in some of these videos. So on the 3 articles on dress video, I found this comment to be so funny. This is from Debbie F. She says, I remember my uncle talking about an earthquake when he was living in California. He quickly got his family to safety and then realized he was nude. Safety first, but he never lived it down. That's like my worst nightmare. Can you imagine having an emergency in the middle of the night and you're nude? I always think that living in California. I think, what if the big earthquake comes and I'm in the shower? You know, what am I gonna do? So I thought that was really funny. Okay, Kathleen H. writes, you encouraged us to dress specifically for bed in Lessons from Madame Chic, and so I got a nightgown and a dressing gown set from Walmart for less than $25 some time ago. My 4-year-old likes to dress in a robe on top of her pajamas too, so this morning while we were cuddling, that is how we were dressed when urgent knocking began at our door. Ooh. She goes on to tell the rest of her story, which was quite interesting as well. But I love that. So she shows that you can get sleepwear at good prices. Daisy Joe writes, so fitting, I was just at our local Goodwill and was able to pick up a red silk PJ set. I was thrilled as they were still tagged. So she went thrifting and found one that had never been worn. That's awesome. Okay, Rita writes, love this month's assignment. I recently decided to wear sleepwear that was feminine and that I felt lovely in. And I think that's just great because, you know, I think we women have lost a lot of our femininity. We're just, you know, with the clothes available, a lot of them are kind of tomboy clothes. And some of us have either forgotten that we love feminine clothing. I mean, have you ever worn a really feminine nightgown? You feel like a queen. You just feel so amazing and different. And just try it. If you are missing that in your life, just try it and see what happens. A beautiful feminine dressing gown. Oh, you're gonna feel like $1,000,000. Olivia writes, for assignment number 3, I purchased cotton plaid pajamas and moccasin slippers from J. Crew. It was definitely time for some new autumn sleepwear since most of my warm pajamas have worn out elastic and refuse to stay on my hips. Sleepwear is something I sometimes forget about, but wearing presentable pajamas really does make a difference in my attitude toward resting at night. Nice pajamas make me feel like drinking tea and reading in bed before I drift off to sleep. Thanks for the helpful challenge. Okay, so that was great. I just wanted to read some of your comments about presentable sleepwear. There were lots of concerned comments too, people who want presentable sleepwear, but they don't know where to find it. So again, please watch that video. That will be coming out very soon. Okay, chic assignment number 4 was to use something that you have been saving for later. Later what? I don't know. We always do this, right? It's human nature. And I was doing it myself, even though I write about this and I talk about it all the time. But you know, I bought those fall napkins that go with the fall tablecloth that I bought for my dining room. And when we were having dinner every night, I was using our old fall napkins. And you know, they're a little bit worn, but they're like a cotton plaid and they're nice. And I realized I hadn't used these at all. And I thought, what am I waiting for? What am I saving it's fall, you know? Like, am I saving them for next year's fall? Why am I not using them now? So we have been using the nice fall napkins. You know, these seasons, they come and go in a snap. And as soon as we know it, it's going to be Christmas time and I'm not going to want to use these. So might as well use them every single day. I wanted to read a comment from I Am Jane, who says, I am always saving my best things for later. Clothing, jewelry, housewares, etc. I'm in my early 50s, and if later isn't here yet, I don't know when it will ever be. Your video came at the perfect time, as I have recently resolved to change my ways. Today I am off from work and going through my closet to do the seasonal purge. I'm applying the use your best principle to my clothes. I'm getting rid of the B-list items and resolving to only keep and wear items that make the A-list this fall and winter. I love that, Jane. That is such a good idea. And watch my 10-item wardrobe videos for more inspiration on that, because those definitely are motivating in that area. What are we waiting for? When is later? When is this elusive later that we're saving our best things for? I know many of you said, I'm going to light my nice candle that I'm saving. I'm going to wear this outfit that I've been saving. So that is really good. Continue to update us in the comment section down below on how you are using your best right now. Okay, let's talk about Edgar Allan Poe. I have his biography here from the Poe Museum, and I wanted to read parts of it to you. It is fascinating, slightly disturbing. A lot of these artists have pretty disturbing lives, but it's important for us to know about them. So if you don't know anything about Edgar Allan Poe, this is going to be interesting for you. So I'm going to read parts of Poe's biography for you now, and then Ben is going to join us to read the second half of The Raven. The name Poe brings to mind images of murderers and madmen, premature burials, and mysterious women who return from the dead. His works have been in print since 1827 and include such literary classics as The Telltale Heart, The Raven, The Fall of the House of Usher. This versatile writer's oeuvre includes short stories, poetry, a novel, a textbook, a book of scientific theory, and hundreds of essays and book reviews. He's widely acknowledged as the inventor of the modern detective story and an innovator of the science fiction genre, but he made his living as America's first great literary critic and theoretician. Poe's reputation today rests primarily on his tales of terror as well as his haunting lyric poetry. Just as the bizarre characters in Poe's stories have captured the public imagination, so too has Poe himself. He is often seen as morbid, mysterious figure lurking in the shadows of moonlit cemeteries or crumbling castles. This is the Poe of legend, but much of what we know about Poe is wrong, the product of a biography written by one of his enemies in an attempt to defame the author's name. Can you imagine how awful that would be? If you passed away and then your enemy wrote your biography, I would be so mad. Okay. The real Poe was born to traveling actors in Boston on January 19th, 1809, but within 3 years, both of his parents had died. How sad. Poe was taken in by the wealthy tobacco merchant John Allan and his wife Frances Valentine Allan in Richmond, Virginia, where his brother and sister went to live with other families. Mr. Allan reared Poe to be a businessman and a Virginia gentleman, but Poe dreamt of emulating his childhood hero, the British poet Lord Byron. The backs of some of Allan's ledger sheets reveal early poetic verses scrawled in a young Poe's handwriting and show how little interest Edgar had in the tobacco business. In 1826, Poe left Richmond to attend the University of Virginia, where he excelled in his classes but accumulated considerable debt. The miserly Allan had sent Poe to college with less than a third of the funds he needed, and Poe soon took up gambling to raise money to pay his expenses. By the end of his first term, Poe was so desperately poor that he burned his furniture to keep warm. Humiliated by his poverty and furious with Allan, Poe was forced to drop out of school and return to Richmond. However, matters continued to worsen. He visited the home of his fiancée, Elmira Royster, only to discover that she had become engaged to another man. The heartbroken Poe's last few months in the Allan mansion were punctuated with increasing hostility toward Allan until Poe finally stormed out of the home in a chaotic quest to become a great poet and to find adventure. He accomplished the former by publishing his first book, Tamerlane, when he was only 18. To achieve the latter, he enlisted in the United States Army. 2 years later, he entered the United States Military Academy at West Point while continuing to write and publish poetry. But after only 8 months at West Point, Poe was thrown out. Broke and alone, Poe turned to Baltimore, his late father's home, and called upon relatives in the city. One of Poe's cousins robbed him in the night, but another relative, Poe's aunt, Maria Clem, became a new mother to him and welcomed him into her home. Clem's daughter, Virginia, first acted as a courier to carry letters to Poe's lady loves, but soon became the object of his desire. While Poe was in Baltimore, John Allan died, leaving Poe out of his will, which did, however, provide for an illegitimate child whom Allan had never seen. Wow. By then, Poe was living in poverty, but had started publishing his short stories, one of which won a contest sponsored by the Saturday Visitor. The connections Poe established through the contest allowed him to publish more stories and to eventually gain an editorial position at the Southern Literary Messenger in Richmond. It was at this magazine that Poe finally found his life's work as a magazine writer. Within a year, Poe helped make the Messenger the most popular magazine in the South with his sensational stories and his scathing book reviews. Poe soon developed a reputation as a fearless critic who not only attacked an author's work, but also insulted the author and the Northern literary establishment. That's funny. Poe targeted some of the most famous writers in the country. One of his victims was the anthologist and editor Rufus Griswold. At the age of 27, Poe brought Maria and Virginia Clem to Richmond and married Virginia, who was not yet 14. They're not saying it here, but Virginia is his cousin. Okay, so she was 13 years old and she was his cousin. That was the part where I was just like, really? But I think, they did that back then. Not saying it's right at all, but that is what happened. Okay. The marriage proved a happy one, but money was always tight. Dissatisfied with his low pay and lack of editorial control at the Messenger, Poe moved to New York City and to Philadelphia a year later, where he wrote for a number of different magazines. In spite of his growing fame, Poe was still barely able to make a living. I always find that interesting as well. It's like you think that people who have that level of fame are wealthy, you just automatically assume, but it's hard to make a living, and he had that too. For the publication of his first book of short stories, Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, he was paid with 25 copies of his book. He would soon become a champion for the cause of higher wages for writers, as well as for international copyright law. Good for him. To change the face of the magazine industry, he proposed starting his own journal, but he failed to find the necessary funding. The January 1845 publication of The Raven made Poe a household name. He was again living in New York City and was now famous enough to draw large crowds to his lectures. He also began demanding better pay for his work. He published 2 books that year and briefly lived his dream of running his own magazine when he bought out the owners of the Broadway Journal. The failure of the venture, his wife's deteriorating health, and rumors spreading about Poe's relationship with a married woman drove him from the city in 1846. At this time, he moved to a tiny cottage in the country. It was there in the winter of 1847 that Virginia died of tuberculosis at the age of 24. Her death devastated Poe and left him unable to write for months. His critics assumed he would soon be dead. They were right. Poe only lived another 2 years and spent much of that time traveling from one city to the next, giving lectures and finding backers for his latest proposed magazine project, to be called The Stylus. He returned to Richmond in the summer of 1849 and reconnected with his first fiancée, Elmira Royster Shelton, who was now a widow. They became engaged and intended to marry in Richmond after Poe's return from a trip to Philadelphia and New York. However, on the way to Philadelphia, Poe stopped in Baltimore and disappeared for 5 days. He was found in the bar room of a public house that was being used as a polling place for an election. The magazine editor, Joseph Snodgrass, sent Poe to Washington College Hospital, where Poe spent the last days of his life far from home and surrounded by strangers. Neither Poe's mother-in-law nor his fiancée knew what had become of him until they read about it in the newspapers. Poe died on October 7, 1849, at the age of 40. The exact cause of Poe's death remains a mystery. Days after Poe's death, his literary rival, Rufus Griswold, see, that's the one he wrote the bad review about, wrote a libelous obituary of the author in a misguided attempt at revenge for some of the offensive things Poe had said and written about him. Griswold followed the obituary with a memoir in which he portrayed Poe as a drunken, womanizing madman with no morals and no friends. Griswold's attacks were meant to cause the public to dismiss Poe and his works, but the biography had exactly the opposite effect and instead drove the sales of Poe's books higher than they had ever been during the author's lifetime. Griswold's distorted image of Poe created the Poe legend that lives on to this day, while Griswold is only remembered, if at all, as Poe's first biographer. So that is a fascinating history of Edgar Allan Poe. And now my husband Ben is going to join us to read the second half of The Raven. Okay, as promised, my husband Ben has joined us.
Hello.
And he is going to finish off The Raven for us. Take it away.
Okay. Much I marvel this ungainly fowl, to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour, nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather that he fluttered. Till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness, broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master who unmercifully disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled and cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon that velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press our nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thou God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, and nepenthe from the memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore, quoth the raven nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here and ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore. Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if, within this distant Aidenn, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
Yay! Can't you just listen to him talk forever? Thank you for doing that.
Pleasure. Anytime.
Well, I'm sure that you all enjoyed that very much. And now we are going to cut to a performance of Schubert's Serenade. Bye, everyone. See you next time.